Hey friends, everyone out there in YouTube land, this is Jeff with Astroscoop. This is Astroscoop Livestream episode number 16. I think I was off one last week, but I believe today is number 16. So welcome. I do these weekly live streams. For now, I'm doing them on Friday evenings, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sometimes Saturday nights at 7 or 8, also Eastern Standard Time. But for now, we're doing just Fridays. And tell your family and friends, it's all sorts of astrology talk, Western astrology for Astroscoop. So today is April 12th, 2024. And tonight's live stream will be the last full coverage of Aries, of this lovely sign for the lovely start of spring. All right, let's look at the chat. I see we have Carolyn there. Hello. Welcome. All right. And I think the Friday night slot, at least the last couple weeks, the Friday night slot, a couple of people came in and out, seemed to be a little better than the Saturday. So maybe we'll stick with Friday for now. But this is beautiful. Like I mentioned last week, the sun's setting over there. So I have all the lights on, but it's not even dark yet. And what a nice evening after all that rain. Oh my goodness. It is beautiful. So this is the last full week of Aries. If you tuned in last week, we talked about the Aries 3 decan, the last period of Aries, and today's the 12th. So this runs from now until right around the 18th or so. And then next week, we will start to cover, we'll finish up a little bit of Aries, and then we'll start talking about what's coming, getting closer to Taurus. So we'll talk about the Aries-Taurus CUSP period. And every week I've been saying this, my CUSP videos seem to be the most popular and the most interesting to people. So I think that's fascinating because the CUSP, a lot of astrologers don't cover the CUSP periods. And the CUSP periods are very important because people are trying to figure out what sign they are, and they're also trying to figure out why or how they have the traits of the other sign. Whatever sign they are on the cusp, you share the traits and characteristics of the other sign as well. So cusp periods are very, very interesting. So that will be coming up. The Aries-Taurus cusp begins right around the 19th or 20th of April. So we will cover that. I hope you don't hear this dog. One of my neighbors has this beautiful golden retriever, and he's huge, gentle giant of a dog, and he's sweet, but he's awfully loud. He is a barker. So hopefully you won't hear him. He's kind of distracting me. So I will try to focus, but he is, since it's still light out, he's still up and barking at people and squirrels and stuff. He's a really sweet dog though. So on that note, I mentioned a couple weeks ago how things are in bloom now. Spring has sprung. It's all about Aries and fire and the rebirth, ideas and everything starting fresh, and that includes all the creatures, the birds, the squirrels, the dogs, the cats. They're all feeling it, and this is a wonderful, wonderful time of year, especially for Aries people, but also for all the signs. So before we get into the Aries, finishing up the Aries 3 decan, which we talked about last week, and I know I repeat myself sometimes, but keep in mind that even if you saw last week or 2 weeks ago the live stream, there could be new people in here. So, there's a lot to talk about, and especially when we're talking about for 45 minutes or an hour, we're talking about the similar material. I'm going to repeat myself, whether it's here or in a video. So I apologize if I'm repeating myself too much. I will try not to. Do you remember, I don't know if you remember, weeks ago I said that I was going to try to stop using the word interesting. So has anyone picked up on that? Have I stopped? I don't know. I will try not to use interesting too often. Maybe once or twice in the hour, but if I go more than 2, I have to find another synonym. So before we start and finish up Aries, I just wanted to mention that everyone, most people know that everyone has a natal, everyone has a natal birth chart, and then there's charts for events, and companies and buildings and clubs and all sorts of stuff. So this is the cosmic weather right now, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I just wanted to remind everybody that everybody has a wheel, and this is your birth or natal chart. So if you're not an Aries, you're probably wondering, well, how do I incorporate all this Aries energy? Because like people that are on tarot, people are doing tarot on YouTube are shuffling cards and they're saying, okay, we're in Aries time. Let me read the cards for Aries, or let me read the cards for all the other signs. So with the wheel, every birth and natal chart, you're going to have Aries somewhere in the chart. So even if you're not an Aries person, you may have an Aries planet. You could have the moon or rising in Aries, but you have Aries on a house placement somewhere in your wheel. And then that governs a house, which is a certain arena of your life. And then that's how you can fine tune how the transiting Aries energy will affect you in your birth chart. And that's a really good fine-tuning sort of technique that's good for astrologers to use, because not only are the transits important for all the signs with your sun sign, but like I said, wherever Aries is in everyone's chart or every country's chart or an event, you can track down, if you will, the energy of how this chart, where the emphasis of energy is, because Aries is Mars and it's all energy. Now, every sign is energy, but Aries is particularly energetic because they are ruled by Mars. And I know that in Linda Goodman's book, Sun Signs, all Linda Goodman's books, and she goes way back, I think to the maybe late 60s, 70s, early 80s. She talked a lot about Aries in depth, about the energy that Aries people tend to have that is unique compared to the other 11 signs. Doesn't mean the other signs aren't dynamic or charismatic or fiery. Again, it depends on your chart as a whole blend. But the Aries energy in and of itself, having the sun exalted, which is well placed in Aries in most astrological systems, it's considered possibly the best placement for the sun, and maybe a tie for the sun in Leo, because Leo is ruled by the sun. It's also very well placed. So Aries people tend to have a natural talent for improving themselves and achieving certain things, achieving confidence, self-actualization, just general strong self-wellness. Aries people can be prone to succeeding at that. But you have to look at Mars, and there's a whole bunch of stuff to look at. So that's why I wanted to mention the first few minutes before. Don't forget about your birth chart. And please let me know. I haven't said this in a while, but if you want to comment on tonight's live stream or any live stream or any of my videos, if you want to comment, let me know if you're watching a particular video, what your level of astrology is. Are you beginner? Are you intermediate? Are you expert? Are you a master? Sort of thing. Because I love to watch different astrologer videos and healing or tarot people. And I watch all different levels. I've watched people that have written books and are very, very advanced, older astrologers. And then I've watched younger people that are beginners, even like Gen Z or young millennials that are beginners. And I've seen some very, very good young people. So my it's hard to really find, it's hard to describe your own skill level in terms of a whole huge gamut of people that are all different levels of ages. But I like to know where you're at in terms of viewing the video. If you're an absolute beginner, I'm trying to figure out also if I get enough beginners, then I might do a live stream where we just do a lesson each week or something. We'll do some beginner lessons, but I don't want to talk about things that are too beginner if the majority of people watching are possibly beginner to intermediate or or intermediate to advanced, so to speak. But we cover these different things each week. They're on different levels anyways. Some's more advanced and some is more simple. I try to keep it simple for the most part, but I don't want to I don't want it to be too simple. So yeah. So any and all comments are greatly appreciated. So we're in the Aries 3 decan. And for most astrology books and systems, this is a pioneering week for Aries born this week. And I talked about all the different celebrities last week that were born this week. We talked last Friday about famous people that were having a birthday this week. And these Aries are Mars people with a Jupiter influence. So it's a Jupiter decan, which we talked about last week. So Aries people, if you know Aries people from differing weeks, let's say you know an Aries that's at the beginning of spring, like March 22nd, and then you know an Aries that's April 5th, or you might know an Aries that's April 16th this week or 17th. Okay, they're all Aries. And the only cusp person would be like the 22nd of March. That would be a Pisces Aries cusp. So that would have some Pisces qualities to that person. But generally speaking, Aries of all decanates are going to have certain fire sign traits that they're going to show in their birth chart. And they will display those certain characteristics. Now in fact, I know two Aries 3 people that I've seen, within the last season, that two Aries 3 people that both have their Mars in Aries in their chart. So the Mars placement, the Mars sign. So they're both Sun in Aries and they're both Mars in Aries as well. So that's a lot of Aries. I mean, Sun and Mars. And I talked about at the very beginning when we started talking about Aries, most astrologers are going to look to Mars in the chart to see how the Aries person uses their energy in addition to their fire sign energy. How the Mars energy could be different if it's in a different sign, a different element, and it will totally throw off. It could enhance or throw off the Aries Mars fire energy. But these two people that I'm describing, they both have Mars and Aries. And what's interesting is I wouldn't describe either of them as particularly aggressive people. They are assertive and they're very animated. Like I would describe them as animated, and they are very much independent. I think they're fairly independent. But this decan, as I talked about last week with Jupiter, is more social. So they're independent, but they really need groups or families or a community at work to be a part of a team. This is probably an Aries person that's most likely the best team player out of the whole Aries period. And these two people that I know, I would definitely describe them as family people. They're very into their families, and they are team players as far as being helpful, and they're generous. They're generous people. They have a lot of good qualities. They're also opinionated, a little sarcastic, maybe. But it's just like any sign we're going to talk about. People have their filters on when we're talking about certain signs or placements, right? Everyone's been burned by someone. You've been burned by a lover that was a certain sign or a certain Venus sign or a certain moon sign. So maybe you were burned by one person with that placement, or two people, or maybe even three. So you have a certain feeling, you have an emotional reaction to a certain sign or a placement. And so we have to really keep things in perspective that, yeah, all the signs have negative traits. All the signs can misfire and can even unintentionally hurt people. And it's all about levels of maturity, evolvement, and balancing out the energy. The more a sign knows, the more self-aware you are about yourself or your spouse or your child or your business partner. The more self-aware you are, you can maybe see where they're coming from and see their point of view. And for someone like an Aries, like this week, Aries 3, they are social and they are helpful, but they're not necessarily natural at seeing another person's point of view and accepting it. That's not natural to an Aries born this week. And for most Aries, that can be a lesson in being able to tolerate people that disagree with them. That can be tough in youth for Aries people, not agreeing and not going along with Aries plans like in a quick way. Aries is like, hey, I want to do this. And other signs are like, whoa, wait, slow down. Does this require risk? Does this require money? Does this require planning? Like, hello, sort of thing. Especially like Libra, Capricorn. We're going to want to deliberate on those Aries impulses, those Aries plans. So that's Aries 3. I'm not going to go all over and talk about the Aries 3 in detail as far as the personality, because I did that last week. And please check out last week's live stream. You could forward towards the end if you want. All my live streams, I save the celebrities for the end. So if you want to forward, if you get a little bored, just scrub the timeline, scrub with your mouse or your finger, scrub it, and go to maybe 40 or 45 minutes in, maybe 50 minutes in, and find out if you want to just do celebrities. I don't think there's any timestamps on here for where I am. I would love to figure out how to do that at some point with the longer form content, like the hour, 45-minute pieces. But yeah, you could just scrub, because I always save the celebs for the end. It's usually the last 15, 20 minutes. So let's get into compatibility. We're not going to talk about fixed stars tonight. I know last week I was talking about fixed stars for the Aries 3, the constellations, and we did that the week before as well. Talked a lot about fixed stars and constellations, which is interesting because I realized that is very much sidereal astrology. So if you're watching and you practice sidereal astrology, you probably most likely disagree with my tropical astrology. So you most likely disagree and say the sidereal is more accurate. So I was kind of looking at both last week. When I was looking at this week and the degrees, I was considering both sidereal and tropical astrology, even though tropical astrology, Western astrology, is my thing. I'm not anti-sidereal, but I know some people are going to say, well, you can't have it both ways. You can't. They're both not right. One has to be right and one has to be wrong. So that's fine if that's that. If you're that black and white in your thinking, more power to you. That's good. But so no fixed stars, and not as much talk about degrees, but we're gonna talk more and more in the live streams coming up coming months about compatibility. And I want to get back into doing more readings for people that are not just about your birth chart, but that I back in the day I used to love, when two people, if I had friends that were dating or whatever, two people that would ask me like, oh, I just met this guy, I just met this girl, any age, there's compatibility is so fun. I think most astrologers love it. And I really, it's one of my focuses really with astrology is the dynamics between the signs. And I've been talking about these dynamics with the signs for a while now in my videos, especially like how to motivate. You can look at some of my older videos. I have how to motivate each sign, the motivations that signs have to use their certain traits. and then how those motivations work with other signs. So that's we're going to be getting more deep dive into that kind of stuff in the coming months. But I wanted to give an example of Shannon Doherty is 53 today. She's born on April 12th, 71. She's a 22-degree Aries. She is an actress that's most known for the Beverly Hills 90210 series from the 90s, which I watched. I don't know if I'm proud of that or not, but I did watch it. It's fun. It's like a soap opera, but it's one of the most long-standing series in TV. And she's born today, so I wanted to mention because she's an Aries 3. Now that leads me into her co-star, who is Jenny Garth. Jenny was born on April 3rd, 72. So Jenny just turned 52 last week, and she's an Aries at 19 degrees. So why am I mentioning Shannon and Jenny? Well, they're both acted in Beverly Hills 90210 together, and they had a big riff on the set. Two Aries women. I want to talk about Mars and like how Mars can be combative. Aries people tend to butt heads with other people, and it's very likely that one Aries will butt heads with another Aries. I mean, that is even if you're a peaceful person, it's almost impossible for two Aries to be in a room and not butt heads after a certain amount of time. So you consider these women at the time were late teens or early 20s going on auditions for this show and casting and all this stuff. So they were very young and probably somewhat immature. And Shannon's a year older than Jenny. But you got two Aries women here. One, so this is what I said, Aries 2 versus 3. So this is a compatibility point on an Aries 2 person and an Aries 3. Different weeks, right? Because Shannon's born today. So Jenny said, in regards to being an Aries, she said, I don't think we ever hit each other, referencing Shannon. Scratching, ? I'm not going to deny that. So that's a quote from Jenny that said she didn't fight, but scratching. So they had their share of, I'm sure, major emotional and verbal fighting. And Aries people are usually quite verbal when they get worked up and can be very, very cutting and blunt. So they're both strong personalities. They both probably wanted to be the center of attention on that show, especially Jenny, because Jenny's born during the Leo decadent, and Shannon's decadent is this week, which is Jupiter. They were also friends, but there was a lot of competition being the main females on the show there. So that's just an example of a compatibility or a dynamic between an Aries 2 and an Aries 3. They're similar but different. And both of them were, we got a 14 degree and a 22 degree. So it depends on, there's the fixed stars too that you could look at. But generally speaking, that's how they use their Mars energy with each other. And then Shannon said, you just have to keep believing in yourself. So she said that in a quote in reference to when she was having trouble in her personal life and it was bleeding into doing the show. And she was clashing not only with Jenny, but she was clashing with Jason Priestley, Luke Perry, Ian Ziering, all of them. She was clashing with all of them, showing up late to work, I read. And so that's just an example. I don't know if that show's interesting to you or not, but that's just an example of how in real life, how Aries, those are two Aries women, can clash, because they might be similar, but they're also different types of Aries, similar age. But of course, that they made up, and when Beverly Hills came back, they squashed their beef, probably just so they can make money. I'm sure it was just about money. So you have to work, right? Probably thinking about retirement. So there's a couple quotes there from two Aries actresses. So that leads into, we're going to talk about the dynamics tonight about Aries with each sign and the Aries and Aries. So I doubt very much I couldn't find too much research on couples, real life couples right now that are living, that might be together, that are famous, that are both Aries. Um, I think maybe Matthew Broderick and Sarah Jessica Parker. Are they still together? Um, they're both Aries, and I know they've had a long-standing friendship before they became romantic. So those are two Aries, uh, from the East Coast that were together early, both of them being early Aries. But like I said, generally speaking, Aries and Aries, you have to look at their Mars signs. That'll give a lot of indication of how they fight. And even if someone doesn't like to fight or is anti-conflict, we all fight in certain different ways. We withdraw, we get defensive, we might get sarcastic, we might get passive aggressive, um, you know, or we might just go toe to toe mentally, or God forbid, a fist fight. Um, so most Aries people are usually okay with a little conflict, and life has conflict in it. Life is part of conflict. Conflict is part of life if you're really living and you're getting close to people and you're having different relationships. You can't avoid. Aries teaches the zodiac. You can't really avoid conflict of all kinds. It doesn't mean you should look for it, and it doesn't mean you should um, fight every battle. You have to pick your battles, but it's okay to have a little healthy conflict in a friendship, in a marriage. In fact, I think it's required, because a lot of good can come out of it, because you can get stuff out on the table. So that's how an Aries and an Aries would get along, is unless there's a lot of secretive signs in their chart, unless there was some Scorpio, a lot of Pisces, maybe some Capricorn, unless there's something in the chart to make one of the Aries people really, really reserved. Generally speaking, those two Aries people will, when it's good, it's good. They're going to support each other. They're going to be positive. But when it goes bad and they clash, it's going to be tough. So generally speaking, I don't know. Aries and Aries is that's up in the air. You really have to look at the Mars signs, and also you got to look at the moon and rising. So that would take some in-depth looking at two charts, not just knowing that two people are Aries. You have to look a lot deeper, and also their maturity, because Aries people, especially young Aries people, can be very immature. Of course, all young people can be, but Aries in particular, because of the energy, can be quite immature and not, a lot of things that can be done that are thoughtless or tactless. So that can be young Aries. So I'm not bashing Aries. Aries has a lot of amazing qualities. If you are an Aries, or you know someone who is, you know that Aries can be some of the most sincere, warm, and honest people around. A positive Aries can be an absolute joy to be around. But if they're having a bad day and they're feeling a little cantankerous, give them a little space. Yeah. All right. So that's Aries. So the 2 and the 3 would be superficial and too outspoken to me in general. For two Aries people, it's too much Aries energy, and they would be too outspoken with each other. So unless they're really, really mature, I would use caution with that. So next we have, there's a couple, Guillaume Canet, I don't know how to pronounce that, and Marion Cotillard, the actress. So that's an Aries and Libra couple in real life. I'm not sure if they're together anymore, and they weren't married, but they had a long-standing friendship and then became romantic. So they're an Aries and Libra couple in real life, very attractive couple. And one thing about Aries and Libra is it is the polarity of the zodiac. So I'm mentioning that Aries and Libra are opposites. So Aries is only going to have one opposite sign. Libra only has one opposite in the zodiac, 66 signs apart. So Aries and Libra are dynamic because they're both cardinal. So cardinal signs are prana, are force. It's like cardinal signs have to push. Cardinal signs can be pushy, right? You can find them pushy, and they have their plans that they want to go forth with. So cardinal signs are the starters. So when you have an Aries and Libra together, it's dynamic, cardinal, and you have fire and air, which creates yang energy together. So yang is extroverted, basically energy that's turned outward and can be more yang or more assertive or aggressive energy. Now, the interesting thing about Aries and Libra is Aries is Mars, but Libra is Venus. So how can Venus be yang, right? Venus also rules Taurus. Venus is the planet of love. Venus is more diplomatic and gentle and can be more refined. So how can that be yang? Well, it's because it's air. It just comes from the element. So fire and air are yang. So Aries and Libra is dynamic. That is a tough combination. They can be really good friends. They can be attracted to each other very fast, and they can have a lot of fun together. Aries and Libra can have a ton of fun together, but they will clash because they both like to argue, and Libra will be usually more diplomatic about it. But the thing is, a lot of people that like the Zodiac love to peg Aries as being selfish. That's one sign that comes up when you say, "Oh, I dated an Aries. He or she was so selfish." Okay, that's absolutely a trait that Aries can have. But Librans can be very selfish as well, in a more quiet way or more like secretive way. Libras want their way. They want to balance the scales in their favor for the most part. So unless you have an Aries and Libra have to be on the same page with values, maybe a cause. Otherwise, that dynamic and fun energy is gonna peter out, because the Libra air will fan the fire of Aries for only so long, and then eventually Aries will probably do something to upset or offend Libra and throw Libra off. And that comes into play with the decanates. Would be more, if you knew the decanates of both people, it'd be more fine-tuned. But generally, yeah, it could be tough. So the Libra person, you have to look at their Venus in their chart. So next we have, I'm not going in order, as you can see, because we did Aries and Aries, we did Aries and Libra. So now we have Aries versus Taurus. So how do Aries and Taurus people gel and get along? Well, Aries is ideas, and that brings it coming into Taurus, which we're going to talk about the CUSP next week. It's a time of year where all the seeds are going to be planted, and then hopefully something will come to fruition, and your gardens will come up, and the grass will come up, and the branches and everything, the trees. So Taurus is going to produce something from that Aries energy. So it's ideas that run into the ground. So the question is the Taurus person supportive of Aries ideas and being forceful and impulsive? Taurus can handle Aries because they're patient. Other signs might not be able to handle Aries, as we'll get to, because Aries can be very impatient. Even older Aries. I've known Aries in their 50s and 60s that were very impatient. Not much different than at 25. So again, it depends on how you use your energy and your basic personality. But Taurus can hang in there. So Taurus can help ground Aries, and Aries can help Taurus not to be so simplistic, but to be a little, to have a little more adventure, a little more fun in their lives. Not that Taurus isn't fun loving, but Taurus has their own way. They have their own kind of plodding way. But Aries can spark that in them. And the pace is like number one. If I was doing a compatibility reading for you, and you were an Aries or a Taurus, and your mate was the other sign, Aries and Taurus, they're both animals. You got the ram and the bull. They can get along well. They will have a basic respect for each other, but Aries has to be careful not to push Taurus too far, because Taurus eventually will just stop it and get mad, and that's not good. An Aries temper and a Taurus temper generally speaking, not great. So pace is really important. Can Taurus maybe speed up a little bit for Aries? Maybe get to a good pace, and can Aries slow down a little bit, depending. But again, you got to look at Mars, and for Taurus, just like Libra, you got to look at the Taurus native, their Venus sign, because they're ruled by Venus. So it's important to look at Venus, because if you don't know those things, if I know we're just talking about sun signs here, and I go way deeper than just sun signs, but I'm doing all this just for illustrative purposes for the dynamics of the sun signs. But you really need to go deep. If you don't have the Venus signs, the Mars signs for love, sex, general energy between each other, you don't have enough to go on. Then you're just guessing, or you're using pure, psychic or intuition energy, which some people do. So, but I like to blend my intuition with some of the beauty that is hidden within a chart. And it is beautiful. So Aries and Taurus depends. I would say mostly yes to that, more so than the Aries and Libra in the long term. Again, some of these dynamics with certain signs can be great in the short term, right? It can be fun for an affair or a friendship or activity partner, but not necessarily for a relationship 2 years down the road, or for marriage 10 years down the road. So those are a whole nother ball game of, I want to date someone for 6 months, or I want to be married to someone for 20 or 30 years. So that's a whole nother different ball game as far as looking at it from an astrological point of view. So next matchup, we have Aries versus Gemini. Now, Gemini people, Gemini is one of those signs. I always try my best not to be biased towards any sign, but I am human and I am not perfect. And I find, for me personally, with my chart, I tend to clash with people that have too much Gemini in their chart. That doesn't mean Sun in Gemini, but for charts that have too much Gemini, it kind of exhausts me to a point, because it's so fun. But that Geminis have a spark about them that they can't quench. Aries has a spark and has a need for stimulation. So these two can have an instant friendship because they both require stimulation. But the Aries is a little more straightforward about, and more simplistic about what their stimulation needs to be. So it depends on the Gemini person. You would look to Mercury in the Gemini chart, is of how they communicate and how they think. You would look at the Mercury person. You would also look at Venus for love, but their ruler is Mercury. So this is a lively combination. It's good for friendship, good for companion, for like companions, like going to a concert or a show. Aries and Gemini, just like Aries and Libra, can have a lot of fun. And Gemini can be a little more flexible than Libra, because Libra is always balancing things. Libra can be maybe a little more perfectionistic, I guess is the word, and Gemini can be a little more freeform. So that's one, and I'm not saying anything negative against Geminis, because I clash with the Gemini planets, but Geminis can they can have that wonderful flexibility for Aries. So they can be very, very flexible. So they can kind of shake it off, so to speak, with Aries. If Aries gets a little fiery, a little hot-headed, Gemini can probably shake it off. And the Gemini's lack of interest at some point in the relationship. Geminis lose interest quickly. It doesn't mean they don't love you or care, but the interest level waxes and wanes with most Gemini planets, especially a moon or a Venus, much more than the sun. But right now we're just talking about the sun in Gemini. So you'd have to look at Mercury for how the person communicates with you, and then the Aries person would have to gain the level of interest. Aries can also lose interest quickly. So this could be a quick, good matchup. Long term, and there has to be something else there for grounding. Definitely has to be some grounding influences there. So next is Aries versus Cancer. Here we have two cardinal signs again, just like Libra's cardinal, Aries and Cancer are cardinal. There is a protective theme here. Male or female, doesn't matter. They're still motherly or fatherly. So most cancers will seek to protect the Aries person in the relationship, especially if the Aries is a little naive or vulnerable. And Aries will also want to maybe be the hero or heroine to Cancer if Cancer is vulnerable or sensitive. So they could have a nice protective theme with each other. But because they're cardinal, they can also clash. They're both aggressive in their own ways. Cancer is sidesteps things, and Aries is assertive. So it depends on what they're trying to accomplish. Cancer also wants their way because they're cardinal. They want their way. It's not as obvious as Aries, just like it's not as obvious with Libra. But they want their way with the cardinal. And then temperament is huge. You have fire and water, very moody. It's a moody combo. So you got to look at the temperaments. Therefore, you look to the Cancer person's moon. So even though they're a sun in Cancer, their moon sign is going to be more important. It's going to have a heavier weight in terms of how they relate to the Aries person, the moon. So, if the Cancer person had a moon in a fire sign, like Leo or Sag, that could go well with the Aries sun. So it would depend, but they would have to look at that. So Aries and Cancer, that could be also a good friendship, protective, and they can also be quite devoted to each other once they trust each other, but there will be clashes. So the question is, how patient can they be with each other? Aries and Leo, that's kind of a classic trine, fire sign trine matchup that's very good in general. I would say that's pretty much a thumbs up for most Aries and Leo people, especially I would say a Leo man and an Aries woman. I think Leo man, Aries woman works better than Leo woman and Aries man. And one example is Sean Penn, the actor, and Robin Wright Penn, who is now just Robin Wright because they're not together anymore. But they were together for a while, and they had a very strong mutual, a lot of mutual interests with acting and everything. And they had a very strong relationship, but also had a lot of it was a stormy relationship. And any of you that have read anything about Sean Penn's relationships with Robin Wright and Madonna, Sean Penn being a Leo, he sounds like a piece of work. He is an amazing actor, though. He's an amazing actor. And I saw them in the 2000s. I saw Robin Wright. She was Robin Wright Penn at the time, and Sean eating in a restaurant in San Francisco. The group of people I was with, we saw them eating, and they were still together at the time, I'm pretty sure. So Aries and Leo can be a good classic matchup for fire sign fun, energy, and admiration. They admire each other. Aries and Leo have heroic themes to them, like in mythology. And anybody that knows an Aries or a Leo person in your family, male or female, doesn't matter. There's something about if they want to help you, if they want to accomplish something and be the hero, get something for a party or get something for an event, especially Leos with like shows and events, community theater, that, oh my God, Leos are totally into that. But Aries is also into that. So anytime Aries and Leo can do that for each other, they will admire each other and they'll have a nice warmth and honesty. But they're going to occupy center stage together. If they can't do it together and one of them just wants all the attention, it's not going to work. So Aries and Leo, as good as it can be, they can have a big falling out. Leo and Aries, like Aries and Aries, will compete with each other. Now, it's not necessarily butting heads. You got a ram and a lion. But Leos want to rule and Aries want to be in charge. So can you both rule and be in charge? Maybe. It depends. I love Leo people. I really do. I do, and I admire Leo. I love the traits of Leo people. They are difficult, in my opinion. Yes, Leo people are difficult. Um, they would probably find me difficult as well, to be fair. um, uh, but my dynamic with Leo can be very fun, but it gets difficult after a while, and that's usually because of sharing either a common theme in your life, a common a third party, or an event, or something where both people need to run the show or be in charge. And most Leos, as great as Leo people are, most Leos don't back down from wanting to take the driver's seat. So it would be nice. Aries and Leo, those are signs you guys and gals can learn to take a back seat once in a while. That's attractive. You don't always have to be in charge. And there's passion there. There's definitely passion between Aries and Leo. Um, there could be an instant passion. That doesn't mean anything's going to last. And it's not just sexual passion. Aries and Leo have a good mental rapport and have a fiery, emotional, sort of spiritual passion together. They can be spiritual together as well. Um, but I do like Leo's warmth for Aries, because Aries needs a warm partner. So that can be a possibility. Next is Aries versus Virgo. That is a throw it up in the air and see what sticks. In conjunct. So in conjunct are signs that they don't share the same element and they don't share the same quality. Cardinal and mutable. And Virgo is earth. So in conjunct, it's all about attitudes. Virgos are usually very quiet, caring, helpful people. But underneath that caring, Virgos have strong attitudes. I wouldn't call them necessarily opinions, but their preferences and attitudes. Virgos can be very pedantic about how they like things. That will frustrate most Aries people. But if an Aries is also very organized and not chaotic, and Aries likes the organization and likes a grounded, helpful, caring partner, that can work really well, because Virgos have a lot to give. Virgos have a lot of good qualities that they can give to an Aries, and they can help Aries in a lot of ways to be more grounded, calmer, not as emotional, not to overreact on things, which Aries can do. But it's all about the attitudes. Aries has to have a good attitude, and Virgo has to have a forgiving attitude, which can be tough for Virgo with Aries. And their thoughts, they think very differently, totally very differently. Virgo is thoughtful, with sensation, can be a little logical. Aries rules the head, but Aries follows their intuition for the most part. And then intuition is the last part, like I mentioned. And Virgo is a sign that would be one tip I have for Virgo people is to develop your intuition more, because Virgo is not a sign that would naturally use it. In fact, they would even block it or squash it. And I've known a lot of Virgo people, especially Moon and Virgo people, that have a talent for it, but they don't use it and they squash it. They don't believe in it, or they don't see the value in it. So they don't use their intuition, or they don't trust it. That's part of it. So there needs to be some trust there. All right, we're coming up on the hour here. Let's see. All right, so we have, let's see. So we did Aries and Libra. So Aries and Scorpio's next. They are also in conjunct like Virgo. So the two signs that are in conjunct Aries are Scorpio and Sag. In conjunct, adjustment. Aries and Scorpio. Boy, that's quite a sign. I think we might have to do a live stream, do a whole hour just on Aries and Scorpio. Maybe we'll do that later in the year when we get to Scorpio. What can I say? Aries and Scorpio are both Mars people. Aries is Mars and Scorpio is Pluto. But Pluto originally was ruled by Mars. Mars, Pluto, Pluto, Mars, whichever order you think. But these are two signs that are similar, but Scorpio is much more controlled and much more reserved with their Mars energy. It's more underneath the surface. So Aries and Scorpio can be can have an amazing commitment. Commitment's the word. If they're both positive and love each other, Aries and Scorpio will have an instant passion and commitment to each other. It will be there from the start. They don't even have to work at it. Aries and Scorpio are two signs that if they're interested in each other, they are pretty much putting 100% into it. Neither sign is going to go halfway. So that can be a wonderful thing, Aries and Scorpio, is that they're not doing it halfway. They are in it to win it. They do it 100% or 110%, but they have different traits. Aries is very transparent with maybe their anger or their Mars. Scorpio is very hidden with their anger and their Mars Pluto energy and can be somewhat quiet or sarcastic or withdrawn. And that'll be tough for Aries. But Aries can also hurt Scorpio's feelings with bluntness and certain behaviors, even though Scorpio will act like it doesn't matter. Scorpio won't show it. They'll act like it doesn't matter because Scorpios are tough. Scorpios have an outer shell that's very tough. But inside, at night, in their own mind, they'll say, boy, that hurt. Scorpio will nurse it. They'll nurse their wound. So Aries and Scorpio are very vulnerable with each other because they can both hurt each other kind of quite easily, but they can also heal each other and be really committed to each other also very easily because the passion. So all it takes is for them to be on the same page. If they have similar values and goals in life, it can work. It can work. They will have occasional clashes and they'll have some down and out fights. Aries and Scorpio, oh yeah, hell yeah. Out of all these combinations, they will fight. But they can make up and they will have a respect for each other. If they both, if you have that basic respect and values, this can be a wonderful, wonderful combination. So I think we're gonna have to talk more about that. That's really piqued my interest. I like that. If you are an Aries or a Scorpio and you're with the other sign, please comment and let me know. Aries versus Sagittarius is the next one. That's another classic good fire sign matchup. It's a trine, and I don't think it's as naturally compatible as Aries and Leo, but I think that can work very well. There is an element of fun and adventure to Aries and Sag people together that will be right from the start. And there's also a sense of philosophical things. Sag is a philosophical sign. Sagittarius people are really, really fun to just rap and talk to. If I love talking to Sagittarius people. Sagittarius people are, for the most part, are broad-minded. They'll talk about different subjects. They'll talk about fun stuff. They'll talk about serious stuff. They'll joke around, but they can also be deep thinkers. And I like that about Sag. And I like that for Aries and Sag. Aries is a big talker for the most part. And Sag will like that about Aries. And Sag likes Aries' honesty and vice versa. So the battles come into play with Aries and Sag. The battles will come into play with the bluntness. These are two of the most blunt signs. So they won't fight in the same way that they would fight like Aries and Scorpio or Aries and Aries. It's not necessarily butting heads, but it is fire sign clashes, so to speak. And Sagittarius can be, in their own way, can like to control things because they see the big picture. They have big, grand schemes and plans. If you know a Sagittarius person, ask them what they're working on. What's your plan right now in life or career or hobby or your house? Most likely their plans aren't small. Sagittarius people do things in a big way, especially the late Sagittarius people that are born near the cusp of Capricorn. They do things in a really big way. So that's mostly good for the fire sign energy, but there can be battles there if they hurt each other's feelings with the bluntness. Next, we have Aries and Capricorn. So that's the last cardinal sign for Aries. And cardinal signs indicate tension and conflict in traditional astrology, which, yes, is the case for somewhat. But this is interesting. I'm going to go on a limb here. And Aries and Capricorn can actually work. And traditional astrology would say, for the most part, sun sign astrology traditional square astrology would say the ram and the goat are just going to butt heads. And they are very different. They're both pushy and want their way, and they both want to be the boss in their own way. But they're kind of like animals vying for the control of the mountain, right? They're animals vying. But the interesting thing about this matchup, I think, is if these two people are mature, an Aries and a Capricorn, they will respect the ambition and drive of each other. They will notice that. A Capricorn will notice that Aries enthusiasm and fire and drive and will respect that. Capricorn will respect it. They won't agree with it. They'll want to slow it down, but they'll be like, wow, look at that Aries go. You know, why can't some of the other people around me be like that? And Aries, they may not admit it, but Aries will admire or even envy the Capricorn drive that's full of forethought and planning and steps. Capricorn's like a classic to-do list person. I would imagine most Capricorns have lots of to-do lists and they're checking them off. So that's great about Capricorn, is step by step by step by step. But Capricorn isn't too slow like Taurus. Capricorns get things done. There's a system in organizational business. There's an organizational system called GTD, which there's all planners about them getting things done. And there's apps about them, which I've used on my phone. And it's a whole different hierarchy of how you plan your tasks and how you manage your time and how you prioritize. GTD is pretty good. Maybe we'll talk about that one day, because I have done time management with some signs in my coaching. So time management is very important for Capricorn. And Aries people can benefit from that. An Aries person would definitely benefit from the more mature and salt of the earth qualities of a good Capricorn. Capricorns have good qualities, salt of the earth. Capricorns can be stodgy, though. Capricorns can be headstrong in a quiet way and can be annoying to an Aries. They will clash. So again, it depends on what they're striving for. But I put striving support. They're both going to be striving for something. So if they could support each other, that can work. Again, it's similar to the Scorpio thing. There has to be similar values there. But that could work with the cardinal signs. Aries and Aquarius. This is a good combination. It really depends on the decanates, because Aries and Aquarius are the two signs of the zodiac that are truly unique. They are true individuals. They kind of teach the other signs how to be independent and how to be you. So Aries wants to be themselves. They will most likely not be pretentious and try to pretend to be someone else, and nor will Aquarius. And Aquarius and Aries will instantly appreciate the honesty. It will be so refreshing, the honesty. And Aries and Aquarius have a natural communication. It can be a natural friendship, but it can be a really, really good intellectual rapport. They can talk about superficial things, but they can talk about deep things, and they can talk about far-reaching things, universal things. Aries has lots of thoughts and is open-minded, and Aquarius is the universal sign. So a lot of fun here, mentally and intellectually. Now, as far as interests and love and sex and things like that, marriage, that depends. Aries and Aquarius for long-term really requires some water signs or some earth signs to calm it down and to slow it down and to hang in there, or maybe even Cancer. So that would need that for the long term. But friends are there. It's the sextile, which is a natural affinity for appreciating each other. Aries and Aquarius usually will not be too judgmental of each other. They'll be more judgmental of the other signs than they are of each other for the most part. And this is another sign I love talking to, like a Sag. Especially Aquarius women. Aquarius people are so fun to talk to. I've met Aquarius people that were really opinionated, that were somewhat know-it-alls, but I still enjoy talking to them, because almost any Aquarius person you talk to will be intellectually stimulating, and that's something that Aries will appreciate. So it's a sextile, and I put the theme of unusual. So they'll, if they can appreciate their unusual approaches, they could have something there. So last but not least, we have Aries versus Pisces. Pisces, as we talked about a month ago, Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. And if you think about it in terms of life cycles and age and wisdom, Aries is the child and Pisces is the elder, because Aries is the first sign and Pisces is the last. So I feel like this matchup, this is really hard. This is, I've even, when I read blogs about the astrological compatibility of sun signs, when I see the authors come to Aries and Pisces, I haven't found any article that's really that good. You know why? Because there's not much to write about this. Aries and Pisces, it's like you don't know what to write, because Pisces is that intangible, nebulous sign. We all know, anybody that knows a Pisces person or knows about astrology will know that Pisces people are hard to describe. They're intangible. Aries people usually are very easy to describe. There's something very tangible and very present about Aries people, that their character and their personality is pronounced. So when you put an Aries and Pisces person together, that is total hit and miss, hit or miss. It could be positive, it could be negative, or it could be nothing. So you have to really, really look deep in the charts. So if I was taking an Aries and Pisces person together and saying, hey, we're dating, we've been dating for a month, what do you think? I would look at the Mars for Aries, I would look at Neptune for the Pisces person, but I will also look at the moon for the Pisces person, and Aries, because the moon is the emotions. Pisces is such an emotional sign and easily hurt. So Aries will always, unfortunately, Aries will unintentionally hurt the Pisces feelings with their fire. That will just happen eventually. But Pisces can withdraw from Aries and can be isolated, and Aries might not feel needed or wanted because Pisces goes into their reef and hides. So all Pisces people are going to hide at some point in relationships. They're not going to want to be seen or heard, and they're not going to want exposure. Pisces is a sign that goes out of their way to make sure that the bright lights in big city are not shining on them. So total hit or miss. So there's really not that much to talk about with Aries and Pisces unless you have the charts. You have to look at the charts. And we'll talk more about that maybe later on when we talk about maybe the moon signs or Venus signs, and we can talk about more dynamics with love and sex, with romantic and marriage compatibility between the signs and certain placements. So now, okay, so we're at the end. We're at the end here. So now we're going to get into, here my daughter this week. My daughter's been doing art for me each week. So shout out to my daughter again. She did the Aries glyph because she said, oh, Dad, she said, I'm a Virgo. And she said, my symbol is that little M thing. I said, yeah, that's the glyph for Virgo. She said, well, I want to do yours. So last week she did fire. So now she did the Aries glyph. So we're in Aries. This is the last Aries, my main Aries live stream. So she wanted to do that for all you Aries people out there. So I hope some Aries people see this at some point and get the shout out. That's for you. So celebs. So here's another Aries Libra couple, an actor named Michael Fassbender and Alicia Vikander. They were friends for 10 years before they were married. So Aries and Libra, classic combination with the opposites there. And then Martin Short, the actor, and Nancy Dolman, he had a long relationship and marriage to her. I think they were married in the 80s, but met in the 70s when they were very young. And unfortunately, she died in 2010. But he was very devoted to her. And that was also an Aries-Libra matchup of the opposites. So the Aries-Libra, and that's why I'm mentioning more Aries-Libra couples, because we're in Aries and the Libra is the opposite. So that can work. And then Neve Campbell, the actress from Scream, she's a Libra and she's with her partner, J.J. Field. who is, now is he in Libra? I had both of them as Libra here, but I think she's Libra and I think he's Aries. 10 years, long-standing, not married. Interesting dynamic between them. And then Robin Wright, who's in Aries. I'm going to leave you with some quotes, and then we'll briefly talk about the cosmic weather for the last few minutes here. Thank you for my 2 thumbs up. Whoever gave me thumbs up, I appreciate it. I'm working hard here. Each week, I'm working hard to deliver some good astrological content here. I am doing all this for free. I basically have done all my astrology stuff for free. Pretty soon, I'm looking into I'm going to have a donation button, so that if you like my content, you like what you hear and like what you see, and you appreciate my hard work, as I'm not a major YouTube creator at 500 subscribers, but that doesn't mean I don't put a lot of work into it. And we do a lot of stuff behind the scenes, week after week. Sometimes I'm preparing now for a live stream in a month from now, different things, and a lot of research on celebrities. So at some point I will have a donation button or PayPal or something if you'd like to donate, and no amount is too small. 50 cents, $1, $5, $10, whatever you feel the value is. But I'll mention that more when I get that set up. So I'm going to leave you with some quotes. Robin Wright, we mentioned she was with Sean Penn. She said, as an Aries, I'd rather attempt something I'm not sure I can do. And she is an Aries too. So very strong-willed person. Obviously, being in the Leo decadent, that's easy to understand why she was attracted to Sean Penn, who is very much a charismatic Leo person, very talented, but also a little troubled, and a challenge. Aries people like a challenge. So, but I like that quote from her. I'd rather attempt something I'm not sure I can do. She was born on April 8th, 66. Very fiery. Oh, she's also awesome in The Princess Bride, one of those classic, kids adult movies. It's really, really interesting. Chevy Chase, the famous Libra person from National Lampoon's Vacation, all sorts of stand-up comedy and SNL fame. And he's a Libra, and he said, quote, live a life full of grace. You'll be a better person for it, and so will your children. So I wanted to mention a Libra. After all this Aries talk, Libra's the opposite. And I like that he mentions grace. I think Chevy's great. He's not funny in everything, but he's a classic. And I like that he mentioned you'll be a better person for it, and so will your children. So that's kind of a good quote to end with, based on the Aries energy, because Aries people often tend to think of their own interests, self-interest. So it's always good to remember, like Libra, remember the other. The other is your family, your children, your partner, your business partner, and your work. The other you have to contribute to. And then Ann Wilson. I had to mention Ann Wilson. Now, she doesn't really apply to this live stream. Ann Wilson is the singer of the rock group Heart from the 70s, and they have reformed, and she's a Gemini. I saw a clip of her on the Howard Stern show singing with her sister, Nancy, and they're touring this year. And she's almost 74 years old. Amazing. Just unbelievable. Amazing energy for a Gemini. And her sister, Nancy, on the guitar is a Pisces. So Gemini and Pisces, beautiful, mutable energy. And they have clashed a lot over the years. They've had falling outs, but they've come together to tour now in their 70s. So how beautiful is that? But I had to mention her because you got to look her up either on Sirius XM or Howard Stern or The Late Show, because they're doing their songs live to prepare for the upcoming tour, I guess this summer and fall. So God bless them. They're amazing. But Ann said, what's important to me is I am especially, what is important to me is love, especially that. What's important to me is growing and evolving. But ultimately, what's important to me is being real and being authentic. I've spent enough time in my life holding poses and playing roles. And that's very Gemini, because Geminis are like chameleons. But I thought that was so positive that she said that, and that she's back with her sister. So that's just a wonderful thing. Oh, Carolyn says, great info. Thanks. Truly appreciate it. Thank you so much. Appreciate all the minutes of viewing. Any minute is appreciated. All right, so those are some quotes from Aries and Libra. So now for the next few minutes, we'll just talk a little bit about, I'm not sure if anyone else has come in. I know it's a long time to hang in there with a podcast. I watched a podcast a couple months ago, and I was surprised that I watched it was an hour and 45 minutes. It was a technology podcast with these two guys. And I said to myself, oh, I'm never going to get through this. Not because they were boring, just because, like, I realize this is it's a lot to pay attention to, but they were interesting enough. And I listened, and before you know it, it was an hour and 45 minutes. I watched the whole thing. So you never know. So here's the chart. Here's today's chart. This is the wheel here. And let's see. So this is the sun right here. The sun in Aries and Mercury in Aries. So this is all the Aries I've been talking about. All that Aries here. We have the sun in Aries at 23. So 1 week left, right, until Taurus. Mercury is retrograde in Aries. So be careful of impulsive decisions. Definitely think twice about signing major contracts. With a Mercury in Aries and a retrograde, I wouldn't do anything impulsively as far as like buying a house or entering into major financial contracts or anything like that. If you can wait till Mercury goes into Taurus or it goes direct, that might be good. The node is in Aries. Venus is in Aries, which is our love nature, which is more fiery now. And we have Mars in Pisces, and Saturn in Pisces. And actually tonight, Mars is conjunct Saturn in Pisces, which is serious Pisces energy for this week. Very, very good for creators and a good outlet for music and anything watery. Pluto is moved now to 2 in Aquarius, 2 degrees. And we have, of course, the outer planets in Taurus here, which don't move much. The moon's in Gemini tonight, which is very chatty. And we have a Libra rising again. I think we had Libra rising last week at this time. So it's interesting. So a lot of babies born maybe at this time on the weekends would have Libra rising. Of course, no matter what their sun sign is, they'd have Libra rising. That's kind of interesting. And then Cancer's up here. So not much going on for Leo or Sag. And then the other air signs, not much for Aquarius. Not much for transiting Gemini, except for the moon, which is going to change to Cancer soon. So again, this is a very, very prominent, strong power time for Aries people. And it's all ruled by Mars and Pisces, which is very different than Aries. So keep in mind all of this compatibility. And if you want to see more of this, I can expand more on the signs and the decanates. We can do a deep dive, but this is fun stuff because it's interesting when you have a partner or a friend or someone that you work with that their sign. Very often people will not be typical of their sign because there's something else in the birth chart, and that's why you have to look at everything. But this is some good framework to understand the dynamics of sun signs with each other. And then when we get to another sign, we can switch it. Like this was kind of like, how is Taurus compatible with Aries? But it's more so for Aries. Then we can say, how is Aries compatible more so for Taurus? That sort of thing. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. My live streams are weekly. Right now, they're Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on YouTube at Astroscoop 3801. Also, follow me on X or Twitter, which is Astro_Scoop. And I post there a few times a week. And then Instagram is at Astroscoop, is it at? Yeah. Astroscoop 7. So Astroscoop 7, all lowercase, on Instagram as well. And I wish you well. And Aries people, this is your last week of your Aries energy. So make sure to set those goals and striving in motion for the next year, because all of you are getting your sun sign, your solar return, which is hopefully helping your mind and your energy and your health to move forward. So thank you so much. Until the next one, stay safe and be yourself.